Forget the missile counts. Forget the press conferences. Forget every headline you've read this week. There's one number that tells you exactly where this war is heading, and almost nobody on cable news has said it out loud yet. The number is 650. I'll explain what it means in a moment. But once you hear it, you won't look at this conflict the same way again. What's up? I'm Daniel. This is Arsenal Economics, and today we're breaking down something that should be front-page news across the world, but somehow isn't. Iran just carried out a 3-step kill chain against America's most advanced missile defense architecture in the Persian Gulf. This wasn't a lucky hit. It wasn't a random strike. It was a carefully sequenced dismantling of a defensive system. The United States has spent 3 decades and tens of billions of dollars building to guarantee security for its allies in the region. And the way it unfolded tells you far more about who actually holds the advantage in this conflict than anything being said by the Pentagon or the White House right now. Here's how the sequence played. Step 1. The FPS 132 Block 5 upgraded early warning radar located at the Al Udeid complex in Qatar. This is a $1 1 cent billion system capable of detecting incoming threats from up to 5,000 kilometers away. Roughly the distance from Qatar to western China. This radar acts as the first alarm bell for the entire Gulf defense network. It's the system that alerts Patriot batteries, THAAD crews, and Aegis destroyers that something is inbound and tells them how much time they have to respond. Iran struck it first, and that decision was not accidental. Step 2. The NTPY-2 forward-based radar at Al Dhafra in the United Arab Emirates. This radar is dedicated to the THAAD system. It provides the precise tracking data that a THAAD launcher absolutely requires in order to function. Without this radar, a THAAD launcher doesn't simply operate less effectively. It cannot operate at all. It cannot acquire targets. It cannot guide interceptors. It becomes nothing more than an extremely expensive structure aimed at the sky. Iran targeted this radar second. Step 3. The THAAD battery itself, the billion-dollar plus terminal phase interceptor system operated directly by U.S. personnel. A standard THAAD battery is typically run by about 95 American soldiers. After the radar was eliminated, after the early warning capability was removed, Iran struck the battery. By that stage, the system couldn't defend itself because the sensors it relied on to detect, track, and engage incoming threats had already been destroyed in the earlier strikes. Now pause for a moment and think about what that sequence actually means. Iran didn't just launch missiles at the most visible American target and hope something got through. They attacked the long-range eyes first, then removed the targeting brain, and only afterward destroyed the body. That isn't opportunistic. That's doctrine. It shows a systems-level understanding of how American missile defense layers are structured and a deliberate plan to collapse those layers in the correct order. That kind of operation requires intelligence on system locations, knowledge of sensor dependencies, and confidence that the strikes would land before the defensive architecture could adapt. And this is where the math starts to become uncomfortable. Remember that number I mentioned earlier, 650. That's the estimated total U.S. stockpile of THAAD interceptors across every theater, every allied deployment, and every global commitment. Roughly 650 interceptors built over about 15 years, produced at a rate of around 40 to 50 rounds per year, with each interceptor costing about $12 million. That's the entire inventory supporting every American promise to shoot down ballistic missiles aimed at allies across multiple regions at the same time. During the 12-day Israel-Iran war last June, the United States launched more than 150 THAAD interceptors. That's roughly 23 to 25% of the entire global stockpile used in just 12 days to defend a single country in a conflict that ultimately ended with a ceasefire. And how many new THAAD interceptors did the United States receive during fiscal year 2026? 12. Year 26. Let that sink in. America expended around 150 interceptors in under 2 weeks last summer. In an entire fiscal year, only 12 replacements entered the inventory. At that production rate, simply replacing the interceptors used in the June war alone would take more than a decade. And that calculation doesn't even account for what's being used right now. The current conflict is 5 days old. It spans 11 countries. In those 5 days, it has already generated more total intercept attempts than the entire June War produced in 12. And on top of that, a THAAD battery itself has been destroyed. That means it's not just interceptors that are gone. It's the launchers, the radar components, the fire control systems, the entire integrated platform that costs somewhere between $1 billion and $1. $8 billion and takes years to manufacture and deploy. But the mechanism that makes this math even worse is the part that defense procurement officials worry about the most. And it's something almost nobody in the media is explaining clearly. Iran doesn't launch ballistic missiles by themselves. Instead, they mix them into salvos with Shahed 136 drones, which cost roughly $35,000 each. Both arrive together in the same waves. And here's the critical problem. A radar operator watching a swarm of incoming contacts cannot instantly determine which radar return represents a $35,000 drone and which one represents a ballistic missile carrying a warhead capable of killing hundreds of people. Classification takes time. Time that a terminal phase engagement might not allow, so the standing order, the only rational standing order, is to engage everything. Every blip gets an interceptor. A PAC-3 MSC interceptor costs roughly $4 million. A THAAD interceptor costs about $12.07 million. An SM-6 launched from a destroyer can cost $4 to $5 million, and a meaningful share of those interceptors are being fired at drones that cost less than a mid-range pickup truck. Iran has effectively turned its drone fleet into an invoicing system. Every mixed salvo becomes a forced purchase order. America and its allies have to pay for the engagement, because the alternative, guessing wrong and allowing a real ballistic missile to slip through, is catastrophically more expensive than the interceptor itself. Iran built its entire salvo doctrine around this math. And 5 days into the conflict, the invoices are already piling up. The UAE intercepted 645 drones in the first 5 days. That's 645 individual engagements, each one requiring a missile, each missile pulled from a stockpile that takes years to replace. Lockheed Martin's target for PAC-3 MES production is 650 units per year by 2027. They're not there yet. And even when they reach that number, those missiles won't just be replacing what the UE fires. They'll have to cover the interceptor demand of every allied country drawing from the same supply chain. And there's a broader dimension to this that extends far beyond the Gulf. A January 2026 report from the Heritage Foundation, a conservative, pro-defense think tank, not a fringe outlet, modeled what would happen to U.S. interceptor inventories during a sustained, high-intensity conflict. Their conclusion was blunt. Interceptors such as SM-3, SM-6, PAC-3 MSE, and THAAD would likely be exhausted within days of sustained combat against a peer adversary. Some systems could be depleted after just 2 to 3 major salvos. The report estimated the total U.S. vertical launch system inventory at around 17,000 rounds, a number they described as insufficient even for a single full fleet reload. Rearming ships pierside would create multi-week operational gaps. The Heritage Foundation's projection was stark: systemic failure within 30 to 60 days. That analysis was originally written in the context of a potential China scenario. Taiwan, the Western Pacific, the conflict every defense planner in the Pentagon has been wargaming since at least 2020. But the stress test is happening right now against Iran in the Gulf, on day 5. And China is absolutely watching. Every THAAD interceptor expended over the UAE is one that cannot sit in a magazine aboard a destroyer in the South China Sea. Every PAC-3 used to defend Al Udeid is a PAC-3 that's unavailable for the scenario Beijing has been studying. The depletion unfolding in real time isn't just an Iran problem. It's a global deterrence problem, and it may be the most strategically significant second-order effect of this entire war. Now, I want to be honest about what we don't know, because that matters too. We don't have Pentagon-confirmed battle damage assessments for every strike described here. We don't know the full scope of U.S. offensive operations targeting Iran's launch infrastructure. We don't know whether backup systems, relocations, or alternative sensor networks are compensating for the losses outlined earlier. The Pentagon's silence could be operational security, just as easily as it could be an effort to conceal bad news. In reality, it's probably some combination of both. But the data we do have, the production numbers, the stockpile depths, the cost ratios, and the Heritage Foundation's modeling is all public. Those figures come from Lockheed Martin's annual reports, Congressional Research Service briefings, and statements from the manufacturers themselves. And none of those numbers have been disputed. 3 decades, the Gulf security architecture, a network of American bases, American radar systems, American interceptor batteries, and American personnel has guaranteed the security of Saudi Arabia, Qatar, the UAE, Kuwait, and Bahrain. Those countries paid for that guarantee with basing rights, procurement contracts, and strategic alignment, and the system rested on a simple implicit promise. The promise that American defensive systems could absorb any Iranian strike package and keep functioning. That the layered defense was deep enough that nothing could reach the core. 3 strikes, 5 days. The core took a hit. Donald Trump says the war could last 4 to 5 weeks. Replacing what has already been consumed takes years. Those 2 timelines do not exist in the same universe. And someone in Washington knows that, even if nobody is saying it on camera yet. This is Arsenal Economics. If this breakdown helped you understand something the mainstream coverage isn't explaining, share it. Send it to someone. Subscribe if you're not already. I'm Daniel, and I'll see you in the next one.